To the north of the Hawaiian Islands is a land so vastly different from our own, yet there are ecological ties that link us. Snow-capped peaks and emerald green mountains were formed by the same ring of fire that continues to build our shorelines. All that grows, all that finds sustenance from the land, does so at the will of the elements. Only the strongest can endure here, so Alaska, like the Hawaiian Islands, was allowed for centuries to evolve in isolation. And although her region is designated polar and ours tropical, we share one great ocean and much of the wildlife in it. For as long as humans have recorded their movements, the humpbacks have called both places home. The ocean giants winter in Hawaiian waters and nurse their newborn. They come here to feed on plankton and wean their young. The currents of the Pacific have also nurtured the connection between native peoples. When the voyaging canoe Hawaii Loa was conceived, her builders were hard-pressed to find koa logs large enough for her hulls. The great forests of Alaska have timber to spare. The Tlingit tribe gifted the Hawaiians with 2 huge logs, and when the Hawaii Loa was seaworthy, she sailed into Juneau on Alaskan spruce. From this time onward, her voyages will reflect the pride and spirit of 2 native peoples. Alaska is blessed with natural resources which lay untouched for centuries because of the rugged terrain. But the lure of the frontier was irresistible to adventurers. Alaska's colorful modern history began with the discovery of gold.
Hi, Gary Sprinkle in Juneau, Alaska. You know, people are still panning for gold up in these streams and rivers. There's a lot of history right here.
Over 100 years ago, gold was discovered in this area. Between 1881 and 1944, the Juneau Gold Belt produced 6.5 million ounces of gold, worth over $3 billion at today's prices. Richard Harris and Joe Juneau found the mother lode here in the Silver Bow Basin.
They were party boys, but they were great boys. In fact, even Juneau here at one time was called Harrisburg.
Later renamed Juneau, as the tale goes, because Joe was more generous with the number of drinks he bought for the miners. The first inhabitants of the area, the Auk Tlinkits, knew the valleys were full of the yellow metal, but it was of little value to them. Today's Juneau is the capital city of Alaska. It's a modern town, but not a big one. Just 30,000 people reside here. Juneau sits in the heart of the Inside Passage and has become a favorite port city for cruise ships, which bring 500,000 visitors to the city each year. Boats are a way of life in Alaska. 2,000 of them in the Juneau area, 1 for every 14 residents. A boat is needed to get from place to place in much of Alaska. Several dozen people from Hawaii come here to fish each year. They are hosted by former Hawaii residents who have made Alaska their home. Richard Yamada is one of them. Yamada owns and operates Shelter Lodge, a 15-minute boat ride from Auk Bay. The Inside Passage is so protected by mountains, it feels like a lake. Shelter Island is one of hundreds of small islets that dot the waterway, but this one is different. This one is a favorite vacation spot for Hawaii people because, in many ways, it feels just like home. Alaska is the land of glaciers. This is the Mendenhall, named after a geologist. It is over 3,000 years old, more than 12 miles long, a mile and a half wide, and over 100 feet deep. Like all minerals, glacial ice has a crystalline structure that absorbs or reflects light, and that is what creates the blue color. When you're standing on a glacier like this, you're really standing on a huge frozen river, and it is amazing. The Mendenhall is one of 38 glaciers fed by a huge ice field. The Juneau ice field encompasses 1,500 square miles, larger than the state of Rhode Island. As snow accumulates in the ice field, it's transformed into glacial ice. Then, under tremendous pressure, it begins to flow, becoming a glacier. This glacier has been receding since the mid-1700s. It flows forward about 2 feet a day. The melting glacier has created Mendenhall Lake, 50 feet above sea level and 200 feet deep. As glaciers slowly recede, land buried for thousands of years is uncovered. Soon after, the land supports a rich growth of vegetation. With each advance and retreat of the glacier, the process begins again. Alaska is a natural wonder, especially for fishermen. Richard Yamada is a fisherman, and he does it in all kinds of weather.
Hey, all right. You know what they say? If you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. You know, it changes all the time. It can be bright sunshine and it could be a lot of rain the next half hour. So we're in a very strong, active maritime environment over here. So depending on these fronts that go through, it'll be sunny or cold within the same day.
Richard's dream of owning and operating a fishing lodge came true when he built Shelter Lodge in 1982. It's nestled in the trees near the southern tip of Shelter Island. The dream evolved when he fell in love and married Jackie, a former employee of his. Richard keeps a lot of things in the family. 2 other former employees, Dean Murayama, a Kailua boy, and Matt Sugai of Pearl City, became partners in a second lodge on the island, Anchor Point, just down the beach from Richard's place. Together, they have developed a cohesive operation that has become especially popular with fishermen from Hawaii.
It's always different out there. No 2 days are alike, and that's what I enjoy. You know, it's not a routine, and I just love being on the water, on the ocean, being with a lot of people.
The Alaskan experience for me is the adventure that we experience here and the wilderness lifestyle. I think those are things that attracted me to Alaska, and I'm just having the time of my life here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Everywhere you look along these shorelines are bald eagles. Yamada calls the eagles fishermen of opportunity. If a fish fins itself on the surface, it can become an eagle's lunch. Most of the boats from Shelter Island are skippered by men from Hawaii.
I worked out here from '88 to '91 and have been back in Hawaii ever since. And just nice to be back here. Just the beautiful outdoors and catching fish.
In Alaska, a good fisherman rarely comes up empty. Among the different kinds of salmon, king salmon is considered top catch because it's such good eating. The boat captains from Hawaii give the fish code names when talking on the shortwave radio to prevent other fishermen listening in from knowing what they're catching. For example, they call king salmon ahi, silver salmon ulua. Well, you get the picture.
Yeah, I got about the same 4 ahi, got 12 ulua, and I have a whole bunch of, maybe about a dozen of papio.
They also have code names for locations. In fact, they've renamed this whole section of the Inside Passage.
Okay, I'm on the run home. I'm just passing Kayana Point, and I should be home in about 20 minutes.
Fishing in southeast Alaska continues to be fruitful, perhaps because there is a limit on how many fish can be taken, and the hatchery programs up here are terrific. Much attention is given to the reproduction of salmon for the purpose of enhancing commercial and sport fisheries. More than 150 million salmon are introduced each year by hatcheries, many of which pack the rivers as they return to spawn and start the process all over again. Yes, fishing is good. The cleaning tables at the Shelter Island lodges are active daily, where the catch is cut, bagged, and later packed for the fisherman's trip home. It is not unusual for each angler to take home more than 100 pounds of fish after a week on the water in Alaska.
So far, I'm just awestruck with the whole thing. It's been fabulous. Today was exceptional, as you can see behind me. Terrific fishing.
To come here, you get to know yourself and other people in your party because there's no phones, no television.
Mike Pickett of Illinois returns to Shelter Island every year.
I think it's all the great friends that I've met and made up here in the last 4 years. All my friends from Hawaii. They probably have the best captains I've ever been around on any fishing trip.
The Eagles know what time of day to show up for some tasty scraps. While they are great hunters, they prefer to scavenge. A discarded fishtail does not last long. Eagles are competitive. They will steal from each other if they can. For this experience alone, Shelter Island is special. Alaska by air is exhilarating, especially if you own your own float plane, as Jacques Norvell does.
It's such a major mode of transportation here. Small communities, logging camps that need air service, mail service, just can't do without the small float plane especially.
This is Lake Young on Admiralty Island.
You have different conditions. Of course, the one that takes the most concentration and care is the glassy water landing. Unlike a runway, you won't be able to see the surface when it's glassy, no depth perception. So controlling that airplane, the rate of descent, and keeping your landing attitude so that you won't possibly flip over. You come into the beach here, get out of an airplane, someone that comes from a city will come in, step off on the beach, and if you just stand still for a moment, they almost shudder with the silence.
Flying is Jacques' business. He often ferries people into remote areas like this, drops them off, and then picks them up a few days later. Forestry cabins are available at reasonable prices, $25 a night, but make sure your reservations are made well in advance.
I've had people in the airplane that have gone on a short flight with me, maybe 30 or 40 minutes, and they get back. Some people that have traveled all over the world, and they'll get out of the airplane and they'll say, bar none, this is the most spectacular place I've ever been to. I like to fly airplanes. They're fun to fly, so I get a kick out of that. And I like float flying because of the variety of conditions you have to deal with. It's always a challenge. You're always learning. But I think overall, it's what I get to see every day.
Admiralty Island is also known for its bear. When the salmon is running, Alaskan bear fatten up for the winter. This bear has found such a good fishing hole, the salmon literally jump into his lap. Bear sometimes show up at the mouth of this stream, a favorite spot for the Shelter Island fishermen.
This is a Dolly Varden trout. It's part of the char family. The average size of these dollies range from anywhere from about a half a pound up to 4 pounds. The pinks range about 3.5 pounds apiece. They like anything flashy, like these pixie lures that we're using. They'll hit a cast mast or anything real flashy. And you cook them up just like a regular trout, pan fry. It's a nice fish with pink spots on it.
One Shelter Island guest on the stream this day is professional tennis player Michael Chang.
I'm so used to big cities and high-risers and stuff. It's just nice to be able to come here and just see so much of nature. I mean, I think just to come out and look at all of God's creations, I think is absolutely wonderful.
This wilderness offers such bounty. However, no luck with the king crab pot today. These crabs are still too small.
Okay, going over.
Going over.
The Dungeness crab pot has some keepers.
Dungeness crab is available in very shallow water, between 15 feet and 30 feet of water. And they have to have 6.5 inches over the top. From this spike to this spike has to be 6.5 inches. You're only allowed to keep, for a non-resident, 5 of these per person a day. And the females all have to go back.
When Dungeness crabs are this fresh, they are that much sweeter. Enjoying a Dungeness crab dinner with Hawaii people in Alaska. What a way to end a day. It is not difficult to understand why so many people from Hawaii seek the Alaskan experience. The connections have already been forged. In this land, as in our own, the quest to live, work, and play in a fragile frontier is part of our continuing Pacific adventures.